Welcome to Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea. I want to welcome back my guest, Sue Rose Minahan. Welcome, Sue.
Oh, hello, Liz. This is a treat and a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Well, I'm glad you could join me and we can continue on. And today we're going to talk about Spring Equinox.
An exciting
And
time.
yes, it is. It's just around the corner and spring is already starting to show up in my yard a little bit. So that's exciting. So to get a hold of Sue, you can contact her at Sue Minahan Astrology at Gmail, or go to her website at talkcosmos.com. And myself, my website is alightpath.com, or you can email me at liz@alightpath. Sue is an eclectic evolutionary astrologer, consultant, lecturer, Dwarf Planet University graduate. So we're talking about spring. Equinox comes from the Latin word equus, meaning equal, and nox, meaning night. Would you like to do the next one, Sue?
Well, I will, because the sun, as we orbit around the sun crosses the plane of the equator and it moves north. That's in the springtime on the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, that's good that you bring that up, because in the southern hemisphere, they're having autumn or fall equinox.
Yes, although we recognize that at both equinoxes, whether it's the vernal, which means spring, or the autumnal, the autumn, the fall one, the light is still even in the morning and night, or day and night, that is.
Yes.
For
Yes.
not long. It shifts.
So there's also the celebration of Ostara, the goddess of Eostar, for spring, new beginnings, and transformations. And it's also time to revisit your intentions, reaffirm, and or make new ones.
Yes, because spring, at the very basis, it has to do with the horizon and the sun coming up right at the eastern point, the eastern horizon. And it begins the horoscope. It's broken away from Pisces, which is the fullness, the completion through its 12 archetypal developments, and it's bursting to go forward. It's an instinctive sign. So yes, these new beginnings, like little sprouts coming up, are everywhere, within us and without. Yes.
Yes, it's Aries, cardinal fire. It's ruled by Mars. Very much about action, adventure, courageous, brave, independent. Would you like to add any?
It is in vibrational astrology, which I am learning with Linda Berry. They learn the energies of a planet through thousands of charts that have an extremely focused aspects for whatever they're studying. And Mars, it's been discovered, is really action, just like Liz, you have there. And of course, it brings up all these other things. It's so instinctive. The problem can be that in one's impetuousness, you might say, of just instinctively being enthused about something, one hasn't taken the time or noticed that maybe it's bumping into somebody else or their needs or something. And so therefore it can provide some conflict, or maybe it's just not happening quick enough and we get frustrated. So it's not negative by itself, but everything has a byproduct. And it's important to realize that that enthusiasm and that wonderful get up and go that Aries can do needs some understanding and extra patience when it's not as one hopes it would be in one's heart. Right?
So yes, like the shadow side of Aries can be impatient, short-tempered, selfish, or it appears to be that way because they're moving so fast and moving forward. It can seem that way,
and it's very self-oriented. It's subjective. And so if two people are being subjective about it, it's like, who's right? Well, once you start to realize the objectivity of the other person, then you can go, oh, I see. Well, maybe that could have been said a little differently, or maybe I need to prepare a little bit to help them, or whatever. We try, but still it has that great power. I think Aries has a great resilience because it has that enthusiasm just to keep going. When the chips are down, they still keep going. And that bravery is much to be appreciated, really.
Well, and that cardinal energy is about starting things. And even if it's not successful or you lose interest, it's like start something new. Just get up and keep going and start again.
That is very important, isn't it? Thank you. I'm glad you said that. They start, yep.
So we have the spring equinox, and for myself, I like to use Greenwich time because that's the international date and timeline, I believe, and where time starts. So it to me, it's like a world chart with the equinoxes and the solstices. So I like to look at that. And so we have the sun circled here in a light green color, and it's in the second house in this chart for Greenwich.
That is so important. I think the world chart there, I was actually in Greenwich and fascinated because there's literally a green laser light. You step on one side and it's one day, and you step on the other side, it's another day. But somewhere, I don't know the history of it right now, but it was determined that time would start there in Greenwich. And isn't that something? The second house, I'll have to keep that in mind because that's very much about our resources and possessions. And
Yes. And just since I'm in the greater Seattle area, I just wanted to show the spring equinox chart. If I cast it for here in Seattle, that it shows that the sun is in the sixth house, and just how the chart moves with when you move your location. And so I would use this for secondary information after the world chart. But, different people use it different ways. It's like if you want to cast it for where you are living, that's fine to do too. So,
I like that idea, Liz. I hadn't thought of it in that way before, so this is very educational. Good idea.
so I found a quote. Sometimes we can only find our true direction when we let the wind of change carry us.
Mhm.
And that's by Mimi Novik, I believe is how you say her name. So I like that.
Absolutely. Like the little birds that carry those seeds and drop them. Oh my goodness. Or a dandelion, you blow it and off go the new directions.
Well, we're in a new season now, so
Yeah.
we have quite a bit going on in this chart, and we're going to kind of um, pick it apart piece by piece and kind of give you an overall theme for that. So the first one we want to look at is in the dark blue, the grand trine in fire. It's about cooperation and flow. So we have the sun in Aries, the moon in Leo, and Pallas Athena in Sagittarius. So those energies are working together. It's the light of where we're headed and our emotions. So you could say our ego and our emotions. And then Pallas, to me, I always think of her as, you know, being wise, but also using our wisdom. What would you say about that, Sue?
I agree 100%, Liz. She's a strategist. She is yes, the strategist. She's a warrior, yet not on the physical terms. She's more the advisor to give you the strategy of how to do things. And in philosophical Sagittarius, how perfect that is. That here it's, as you say, our whole identity, our the way we see things clearly with the sun and that emotional history that we have of who we are in Leo. There's hope there. It's a lot to go forward.
A big change, a shift, good energy to carry
Mm,
forward. And
yeah,
then in
thank
the
you.
light blue, we have a trine between Vesta and Gemini in the sixth house, and Mars and Aquarius in the first house. So Mars is action and passion in Aquarius, and Vesta is our hearth and home. Um, and the sixth house is also about health and our day to day living, our day to day objects and projects. Um, it can be our work too. So I would say, pay attention to your body. Maybe it's time to add a little exercise, add a little bit of fresh air and sunshine, add in, a little bit better eating habits, perhaps. What would you say,
So,
Sue?
oh, it sounds good. It sounds good. And isn't it interesting that with Gemini and Aquarius, which are the air signs, that they're sextile all that fire. So really, and because it's Sagittarius, that you're getting strategy with belief systems, that these two being activated about, as you say, about our hearth, our, would you say our intellectual hearth too, about what we're, our neighbors, our whole environment. There's a lot to build there. It's
Well, and it could be even a project around your home, even, because
mm.
Mars, it's like getting ready and energetic and like, going and buying the paint because you're really going to paint the house now or start that garden. It can,
Interestingly, for instance, my husband said to me today, don't you think we could move the lanai table? Because we have a lanai here in Hawaii, thankfully, and we get to sit outside, unlike my other place I lived at in Seattle, and move the table so that we could sit there together instead of other situations. So, yeah, I guess I have a project ahead.
that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And then in the pink color, we have a mini grand trine, which is it's all connected. So we have on the ascendant, we have Pholus, the ascendant in Ceres and Capricorn, sextile, which is 60 degrees away from Venus and Saturn, which is sextile to Jupiter and part of Spirit in Taurus. And then it connects back to that Capricorn energy with a trine. So it all connects. Um, there's a lot of energy there. So starting with the ascendant of who we are, it to me, Pholus always reminds me of, it's like a new beginning and a fresh new start, a tipping point, a changing point. And how we're seen as the ascendant in Ceres is harvesting what we have, it's nurturing. And then Venus and Saturn, it's like Venus is our values and how we love or what we desire, and Saturn is a
Mm.
container. But it's hard for Saturn to have a container in Pisces because it's like dissolving those boundaries or that container. And it's like, we don't need a container right now because down the road, we're going to create a new container when Saturn gets into Aries.
Well, that's true. Although I remember that if you look at the Earth is Earth, right? And the ocean's inside it. Wouldn't be the ocean or a river or a lake if we didn't have Earth under it. I really like how you began with the ascendant, Liz, because it's such a motivating, hopeful opportunist, lots of opportunity with Jupiter there. It rules, of course, Sagittarius. It flushes right back to the other grand trine. So it's really a lot of opportunity of new nurturing for ourselves with lots of action instead of the grief part. It's like, no, we're going to nurture and go forward.
Well, and probably those steps forward that we might take at this time with Jupiter, a part of this, can be more beneficial than maybe you could even imagine.
Oh, boy, I love that. And I really think that with this last talk that we had on Talk Cosmos, centered on Venus and Saturn, because it occurs just exactly the next day or 2 days afterwards. So it's a very close conjunction, and it's part of this spring equinox. So you can find out more about it. But there's a lot there to share that is strengthening, I think.
Oh, thank you. So for those of you that would like to watch Sue's show, go to YouTube and type in Talk Cosmos, and you'll be able to find her shows, and you can find out more about Venus and Saturn. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh.
Now we move into what a lot of us would call a little bit more challenging aspects. But sometimes if we have to work at something, we make progress to move forward, make positive changes, because if everything was simple and easy, we wouldn't be very motivated to make changes. And so we can grow from squares and oppositions. It's an opportunity for
Mm.
growth for us. So we have this cardinal T square with the ascendant Pholus and Ceres and Capricorn, the north node Mercury and Chiron in Aries, opposite the south node in Libra, and then the south node connects back to that ascendant.
We are really going places, aren't we? Collectively, with that ascendant, our entry point being with a trine that we just saw, the flow of everything going, and then this call to action between the past and the future. I mean, the south node is where we're coming from with our partnerships and our how we want to connect in relationships, and then that how maybe through them we're healing. I think we talked about that with all that mental energy with
Yes,
Mercury.
that sounds beautiful. And with the south node in Libra, that's about relationships. So there could be some work to do on relationships and move into that north node in Aries with Mercury there and Chiron. And it's like,
Mm.
you know, maybe you feel wounded as a possibility. And so to have clearer communication and to work on healing those wounds and having better relationships, it's an opportunity for a huge amount of growth.
And it's all about your identity in Aries. Exactly. So all of this in your relationships is, who am I really? If I gone too far and maybe not answering to my own needs and trying to please, and then it can get complicated, right? You need to.
Well, and when you heal yourself, I believe we can help others heal too. We can share our
Yes,
stories. So it's then you can become
it's
the
true.
teacher because you've had that experience.
Beautiful.
And then,
Yes.
it goes back to that ascendant that we've been talking about already. So, this turning point in how we
Mm,
communicate with, it can be even how we communicate to ourselves and but
yes.
to others also. I think it's really important. And, to have a more passionate, healthy outlook for life, etc.
And in Capricorn, perhaps becoming the mastery. That's very, thank you.
Yes, I like that. So we'll go to the next one. And now we have a mutable T square. So,
Uh,
there's a lot of opportunity for growth here. So, in the eighth house, we have the
mm,
Black Moon Lilith with the part of fortune and Juno in Virgo. And then in the 11th house, we have Pallas Athena in Sagittarius.
strategist.
And in the second house, we have Venus and Saturn in Pisces. Um, so this aspect also really speaks to me about relationships. The Black Moon Lilith, one part of her is like, it's like, how do you resolve things? It's like things need to resolve. And it is in the eighth house of letting go. So what can you resolve? And it's next to the part of fortune. So if you resolve whatever issues you have, and I would say it's in relationships, so resolving relationship issues. And um, in the world, we can see that there's a lot of relationship issues that could use some resolving because we have a few wars going on. So that would just be one example of how it is out in the world. And then Venus and Saturn here again involved. And to me, that Venus and Saturn together really talks a lot about relationships. And then Pallas, um, how can we be in right relationships to strategize? Like, how are we going to grow? How are we going to move forward?
That eighth house with those two, the points, well, the asteroid Juno, which connotes marriage or else our alliances. What are we aligned with? And then Black Moon Lilith, that is so much of our very well, primal feminine energy that we all have, whether you're masculine or not. But the point of being authentic, your own self, that But in Virgo, it seems to me that this complexity of action is saying yes, because Virgo likes to fix things. It's so capable and it wants to perfect. It knows that if things just aren't left to some correction, that they go amok. That yes, things are perfect, but yet, I mean, they're perfect in the sense of the greater forces. Nature just does what it does. But on the other hand, a house does need the dishes done. And that's just one little example. But life needs some correcting. But the problem is, and I think this is why we have a T square, is that it isn't always up to us. In other words, are we, the backbone of it is this relationship with spirit, with the greater forces, and realizing how to look at why maybe something's been delayed and maybe it's a new opportunity, or else it's an opportunity to take advantage of because it's presented to you. I mean, those are just two suggestions. And it all builds a new philosophy, right? You strategize. It's like a new way of beliefs. But isn't it also, I'll finish, hand it back right to you, Liz, is that I'm thinking both Pallas and Venus and Saturn were so integral with these other dynamic aspects, whether they were, I'd have to go back, T-squares and trines. But here suddenly we get Juno and Black Moon Lilith and the spirit of fortune. That's part of
Right.
fortune, rather.
Mm-hmm.
That means that's a good direction to go, because that's how we blend or exchange our resources. 8th house. How are we taking our resources? 2nd house, and that was the world chart where the sun was at, and it still is. That's right. We're still at the world chart. Thank you. And
Yes.
yeah,
And with Virgo in that 8th house, it's like, do you need a mediator or a counselor to help with whatever you need to resolve or grow? Or we have Pallas in Sagittarius, so that makes me think of, well, the things I can do something about, I will, and the other things I'll just give up to a higher power to take care of or help me or assist me with that.
That's good to remember that there's ways to get help, and one is to ask and then to receive. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Okay, we have a few more aspects here. We have in the red a square between Hygeia, Neptune, and Pisces, and Vesta and Gemini. And the Neptune in Hygeia is in the 2nd house, and Vesta is in the 6th house. Neptune is our dreams and our visions, or our illusions. And Hygeia is about health and hygiene. And Vesta is hearth and home. And the 6th house is about health, and our day-to-day tasks that we have to accomplish. So again, it's kind of another indication of, what little changes can I make to my health, or do I need to have changes to improve my health, or I haven't been to a doctor for a while, but I better, make an appointment and, do my blood tests or whatever tests I need, and stay on top of those things. Would you
Sounds
like to
good,
add
Liz.
anything to
Nope.
that?
I think you've presented it. I like it. I mean, it's
Okay.
good feed. It's good.
Okay, thank you. And then we have an opposition between the moon and Pluto. Pluto's in Aquarius, the moon's in Leo. So our emotions could kind of be on a yo-yo string, is what I would say. What would you like to say?
I like that. Up and down like not a teeter-totter. Change is tricky. That's what I come up with. And I'm a Gemini, and so you'd think I'd be all around it. But of course, your whole chart, as we see, involves so much more. And there's always fixed ideas and whatnot. And the point is, when Pluto gets involved, there's a whole hidden world. Pluto, in mythology, wore the helmet, was invisible because it's under the, is in the afterlife. It's that idea that we return, we pass and we go down and come back again. But it's not something that we invite always, like an invitation, like, here, come over for dinner. We're having hors d'oeuvres, bring your potluck or whatever. It's like, oh my goodness, it just confronts you. And yet it's really important because it's leading the way to a stronger, it's tearing things down and rebuilding. And when it gets to our emotions, especially in Leo, which is where we've tried to manifest ourselves, it's like, gee, not right. But then wouldn't it say that really it's, instead of us shining by ourselves, it's how can we also be shining in teams and networks like you and I? You're on my panel with Talk Cosmos, which I dearly love, with all your insights and great additions. And here you've kindly invited me to do one of yours during the month, and it changes the hats. And it's a great opportunity. But that's just one example. There's so many about.
Thank you. And
June.
also with that Pluto opposite the moon, it's very possible that some emotion that you buried very deep, perhaps even forgot about, could come to the surface. So be gentle with yourself and process it as kindly and as you can. And then we have a quincunx or inconjunct from the south node to Jupiter and part of spirit, and a quincunx is 150 degrees apart from each other. So from the, like relationships from the past, moving away from that, but maybe it's getting in touch with contacts that you have from the past. It's like some of your resources that you have, you might need to tap into that and look into that. It might be helpful to you in the future or at this time.
That's a positive way, because I always think of a quincunx in the real sense of it. They don't share any immediate energies like one's air here, Libra, partnerships and Taurus. The difference is they're both ruled by Venus, aren't they? And so
Mm-hmm.
they have, and that's the whole idea of a quincunx, from what I understand, is to bridge some commonality, because it's often called an adjustment, meaning it's a little tricky. How are we letting go of what is blocking us with our patterns, you could say, of relationships that's maybe not serving us so well, maybe whatever it could be, maybe not honoring ourselves enough within our relationships. But it's not so easy to get to that new sense of belief structures or philosophy about it. But yet they're both ruled by, so taking the high road, maybe it's really looking at Venus, which is over there with Saturn, isn't it? So we need to listen to the maestro.
It's like, almost falling out of your chair, but you catch yourself and you get yourself back in the chair.
Ah, yeah.
But it does
Really a
ask
school.
for adjustment. And maybe it's like reaching out to somebody from the past that maybe you were angry at, and it's like time to reach out and just kind of catch up or share something with them. I'm not sure. It could be any number of things.
Well, they're all interlocked. There's so many of these, so that one pattern kind of feeds into the next, and they're beefing us along.
So,
I'm not sure where I came up with that, but anyway,
so from
it's a
looking at
formula.
all the aspects, I say that there's a lot of opportunity for new growth and moving forward and full steam ahead, so to speak. Do you want to say anything else about that?
A great description for the spring, because isn't that what we think of? The birds are out here in the northern hemisphere, and even in the southern hemisphere, you get that time to recap, to enjoy. There's a new birth in a certain way. There it may be more for resting. Here it's for beginning. We've done our winter pause. We're ready to go, and the sun is coming out in full force. So thank you,
Sounds.
Liz.
And so we have upcoming episodes: the full moon forecast with the Libra full moon solar eclipse, the astrology forecast for April, and our I'll be on Sue's show at Talk Cosmos Archetypal Symbols, the Aries new moon solar eclipse on April 8th. It's live on April 7th at 1 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube if you want to join us on that.
Isn't it amazing? It's going to be the day before the eclipse. And we're really in the season of eclipse season now, I think.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, I think so. We're feeling it.
we are. And I might say the full moon forecast and the astrology forecast is with Justin, Crockett, Elsie, and yourself. So they're beautiful. I thought you too were doing your
Oops.
own once a week. Are you?
I haven't done that yet, so I'm going to start.
Okay. It's going to be the dessert for the month's
So we
program.
have a World Astrology Day, which is the same day as Spring Equinox. Um, East West Books and Top Cosmos are co hosting this event. World Astrology Day, Healing Approaches to Astrology in 2024. It'll be on Tuesday, March 19th from 2:30 to 5:30 Pacific Time, and you can register at eastwestseattle.org. And would you like to share anything else about this, Sue?
I'm so glad you brought it up. There'll be 18 astrologers, and Liz is myself will be there, Justin will be there, and a whole potpourri of other wonderful astrologers that are each dedicating time towards what 2024 brings up. And there'll be a question answer period with registrant, anybody that registers. So you have an opportunity to send in questions and have any of us answer it. And of course, you get a recording too. So do go to eastwestseattle.org and it'll be exciting to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. So be sure and come back next month for another episode with Astrology Star Sisters as we talk over tea. And the topic will be Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus.
Oh, the dominoes of the heavens are striking. This is going to be, we'll know what happens.
And here again is Sue's contact information, talkcosmos.com, or Sue Minahan, astrology@gmail.com, and myself, alightpath.com, or Liz at alightpath.com. And thank you so much, Sue, for joining me and our audience. We thank you for watching our show and supporting us. Make comments, like, subscribe, and we look forward to you next time. Any closing statement you would like to
Oh,
make?
absolutely. It's what a wonderful opportunity to have this really strong meat and potatoes to talk about with all his little garnishes. I mean, this is going to be a full meal as far as spring equinox. So I'm getting
Yes,
my fork. I'm getting ready.
full speed ahead and a lot of growth potential for all of us.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you,
Thank you, Liz.
everybody. We'll see you next time.